This is the Blitz on 94.1 San Antonio Sports Star. I'm Joe. He's Jason.
RJ Ochoa from bloggingtheboys.com joining us now on the Buyers Barricades guest line. Just celebrated a birthday this week along with another Cowboys victory. RJ, how's your Wednesday?
Doing well. Thank y'all very much. It was a phenomenal weekend to be me. Arizona State got a big-time dramatic win against Tech. Florida won and then fired Billy Napier. God bless him. But the Cowboys got a big-time win. Victory Polo Monday. I had leftover cake for a few days. I got no complaints.
No, wait. You've got more universities now that you root for than I have hockey teams that you've always given me crap for, yet you forgot A&M.
Well, I mean, somebody has to fall by the wayside. I'm happy for A&M, don't get me wrong, but I feel like I'm not. I've got to pick a side, so to speak. And so I wish them no ill will. And it is funny that as soon as I, move on, they all of a sudden are a national powerhouse. We'll see how this weekend goes in Baton Rouge. But I've got no football complaints right now. My football cup is overflowing, and it's pretty happy.
Well, let's make it happier, RJ. How about Max Crosby or somebody like that? In a trade to the Dallas Cowboys. I found it shocking yesterday, quite frankly, that the Cowboys were one of the teams that were said to be interested in a Max Crosby. And quite frankly, I think it'd be a great move for that football team.
Yeah, I think the low-hanging fruit jokes are, then you shouldn't have traded away Michael Parsons. Like, we all understand that, we're down the rabbit hole here, right? So just, we can admit that. But it would make so much sense. Trey Hendrickson would make sense. Like, I think that people misconstrue this idea and say, well, I don't want to do this because they're not a Max Crosby away. They're not a Trey Hendrickson away. I agree with that in a specific sense, but I would also offer you have a quarterback playing the position, the most important position in the game, better than anybody on earth right now. You have two phenomenal wide receivers and a tight end who can amplify his skills and strengths. You have a run game that's working in perfect harmony with everything. I hate the term window or win now or all in, things like that. But if those things ever fit, it's relative to this moment. You have to try. You owe it to yourself and to your roster at this point.
RJ Ochoa, bloggingtheboys.com with us here on the Blitz on 94.1 at San Antonio Sports Star. I would love to have a Max Crosby. What's the price for a Max Crosby? And, Max reports out of Vegas say that the Raiders met with him yesterday and said, dude, we're not trading you. Don't ignore all the noise. Jerry, according to one, has made inquiries. According to others, Jerry hasn't picked up the phone. Jerry typically doesn't pick up the phone and call. He waits for the phone to ring. Either way, what would you think it would be a fair trade for one Max Crosby?
I think one of your ones and change, whatever that change looks like, it's probably a matter of debate and of, back and forth, a few phone calls and things like that. Maybe it's a fourth round pick. Maybe it starts as a third round pick. Maybe you can whittle it down to a fifth. Maybe it's a third rounder in 2027, something like that. And what I think is interesting about that is very often when we see teams who have multiple first round draft picks, when they trade one away, they generally send their own, right? Because you're not going to bet against yourself. You're going to assume that it's going to work out for you. But this is a mid-season trade, at least hypothetically. And so I'll ask you guys, like we know today that currently the Cowboys pick is 13th and the Packers pick is 31st. If you were the Raiders, which one would you want?
Well, you want the Cowboys.
Yeah,
obviously.
Even if you think Max Crosby is going to make them better. I mean, it's an interesting wrinkle that doesn't always exist. And if you're the Cowboys, do you want to hold your own pick and therefore actually bet against yourself?
I in reality, because I've read stuff where the Raiders might want 2-1s, which I don't know that I would do if I'm Jerry Jones.
Nah.
I will give you 1-1, and you can have my one, or you can have Green Bay's one. We'll figure that out. And depending on what else is going to be in the mix to be able to get that deal done. But 1-1, and if it ends up being the Cowboys pick and not the Green Bay pick, I'm good with that because essentially I would have traded Micah Parsons for Max Crosby, a pick, and a Kenny Clark.
And salary cap space. I mean, if you're putting value in everything, and again, we could talk about how stupid it was to get where a guy that you could and should have taken care of Micah last March of 2024, to be clear, and then none of this ever happens. I digress. But look, and I don't think anyone's arguing this, but in case anyone is, Max Crosby is not Micah Parsons. He certainly isn't, and that's okay. But Max is in the same tier. Max is one of those handful of pass rushers who can change a game. He's in that same camp with Trey Hendrickson, with Aiden Hutchinson, again with Myles Garrett. You can rank the guys how you want, TJ Watt. But you get that guy, you get him at a lower rate, you get him on a contract that is already taken care of, so you don't have to have that song and dance routine with him. I mean, and I think that, not to say that Micah is absent of this quality, but relative to a trade we have seen the Cowboys make recently, the George Pickens one, I think that George Pickens' attitude, which was a point of concern, but it has been infectious. I really do. I think the Cowboys have not had a personality like that, someone with that spirit and tenacity. And Max Crosby's that kind of guy too. Max Crosby's the kind of psycho you want playing for you in all the positive ways. And so, again, not to say that Micah isn't that guy, but he amplifies what you're trying to do in the culture that Brian Schottenheimer's trying to build.
Well, I totally agree with that. And it's about time the Cowboys had an attitude on that defense. And I think a guy like Max Crosby would do that. And I'm not going to debate who's better or what, but I think Max Crosby overall, he can help stop the run. I mean, the guy's got some pretty good hands. He's already got an interception this year. I mean, he's a good all-around player, where Micah may be a better pass rusher, perhaps. I think with Crosby, you're getting a little bit of everything thrown in there. Having said all of that, and I don't want to debate you on that, I think it would be good. But there are some scenarios that have been put out by Bleacher Report that there are actually 4 teams, and it says for the Cowboys, they're speculating that it'd be a first-round pick this year and a first-round pick in 27. Plus, you throw in Mozzie Smith.
I mean, look, I don't know if that was a joke, but I know that people say things like that, like, take this dude I don't want, right? Like, it's basically like you just think like quantitatively the offer is more appealing because they can have Jalen Tolbert. Dude, you don't want Tolbert. They don't want Tolbert. I mean, and I think that ultimately you also have to have a realistic, even if you're serious about including players like this, because I've seen Tolbert, I've seen Sam Williams, I hadn't seen Mozzie until this moment. But all of those 3 players are in the final year of their contracts. What benefit, even if the Raiders were in love with them as players, they would immediately have to pay them. You have to be real. You have to be practical. Like you have to have these conversations like an adult. That's really what I'm saying.
So throw in Diggs.
That wasn't a joke. I mean, that was on the paper. I didn't make that up. Just for the record.
I mean, Trayvon is an interesting name, and it is, fun to play conspiracy theorists this time of year. We've been talking about Max Crosby, but Trey Hendrickson's name has come up. He was mentioned by Jeremy Fowler and being connected to the Cowboys, also in a contract year. But Trey did not play last Thursday night. Had an injury that he fought really hard to get through, according to all the insiders. And you do wonder, is he not playing so he can stay healthy so they can trade him? And I don't have the energy anymore. My son is almost 4, and so all my energy goes there. But I don't have the energy to drum up what the conspiracy theory would be behind Trayvon and this concussion. I'm willing to take it at full face value that it's just a concussion that's really weird, but maybe I'm naive. But again, why would anybody want to trade for Trayvon Diggs at this point in time? I think that's a question worth asking out loud, and I mean no disrespect to him.
Pete Carroll loves corners. I mean, you could throw all this spaghetti against the wall, but when you look at the way the Cowboys played Sunday against Washington, and apparently, Brian Schottenheimer spent a lot of time in the defensive meetings. They played more man coverage. Now, maybe that's because they were playing a Washington team that was down their top 3 receivers and had some practice squad guys, and your starting corner should be able to beat their practice squad guys in man-to-man coverage. That said, the defense played their best game of the year. And the way the offense is playing, do you see Jerry making a move to help the defense, whether it's Max Crosby, which is obviously the big fish, or some of the other players that might not be as big of a name or have the kind of impact you would think Max Crosby is, but incremental help that's better than what they currently have?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it would be irresponsible not to, especially if you do forecast yourself if you're the Cowboys to getting compensatory picks. And that's why the Trey Hendrickson thing makes more sense to me, because they're not a team that generally trades for players with time remaining on their deals. They value the comp picks. They don't want to compromise that. They want to have that dangling as an option. And I think that, again, it will probably be a player even below the caliber of Trey Hendrickson, to be clear. But the reason that makes sense in my mind is that truly is a rental. That truly is a matter of, we think we're close now. We want to bring in someone to help us right now, and we're willing to pay a lower price to not have contractual control over him for the foreseeable future. He can go his separate way in 2026. He can net us a comp pick, and we can still hold our premium draft capital for 2026 and beyond. I think that's probably the most rational way to go about it. Although you can make the argument that you're hoping to draft a guy next year that is who Max Crosby has proven himself to be. That's why this thing is so fun. But yeah, I absolutely believe the Cowboys are going to add somebody. You have to. I mean, you simply have to. You've already made this impossible for your offense and for Brian Schottenheimer and Dak Prescott. But guess what? They have lived up to it. They fully and totally did the super difficult thing that you asked them to do. And so you owe it to them to stabilize the defensive side of the ball, because I don't think any of us, are asking the Cowboys to be the 5th or even 10th or 12th best defense in the NFL. Go be 23rd. Go be 26th. You know what I mean? And that's enough. Like, that truly is. And so if you can get somebody to help just raise the floor that bare amount, I mean, it sounds stupid and far-fetched, and this team hasn't won in 30 years, so the jokes write themselves, but you're right there. You're right there as much as anybody else, especially in an NFL where there are 3 wild cards per conference.
Well, and while we're looking at that, and you're talking about the defense, I mean, unless you get a Max Crosby or even a Hendrickson for that matter, and I'm not necessarily sure that I agree with you there, unless he is just truly a rental and you get him for a bag of chips, that's fine. But how about linebacker or defensive back even, going out and doing that? I think a linebacker position might be your weakest, and I know Overshown's coming back, but can you really count on him day one when he gets back? I'm not sure that you can. Maybe you can, and maybe that's a gift. I'd rather see him go out and get a linebacker or somebody that can help out in that defensive secondary.
Well, let me be clear that I would not, I would have planned for, our flight in the air differently, but the plane is in the air, right? Like, if we could go back to when we were on the ground, I would love to have had different conversations and discussions, but we're 30,000 feet in the sky right now. So it's a matter of, how do we land the plane? Like, how do we successfully get to the destination, which, for, all intents and purposes is winning the Super Bowl, as difficult as it is. And so I agree with you, Joe, like, foundationally, logically, responsibly, it isn't wise to count on DeMarvion Overshown or Savon Rebel. I would offer that that's their answer at defensive back. But you're here now, right? Like, you packed what you packed. And so you have to hope is not a strategy, but this is the place you're at. You have to hope that Overshown is the answer at linebacker. You have to hope that Rebel is the answer at defensive back. You've already invested enough. You've brought them on the proverbial plane. What you did not bring was an extra pass rusher, but the Air Force can fly up next to you and do that cool thing where they're both in the air and they can shoot the, string or whatever across and, we'll send the packages or refuel the plane. Like, that's what you can do at pass rusher. It's the only thing that's available to you right now. And so that's why I think it makes the most sense to go that direction at this specific point in time.
RJ Ochoa with an underway replenishment analogy. Very well done,
wow.
my friend. Very well. That's what we called it in the Navy. I don't know what the hell the Air Force calls it, but that's what it's called in the Navy. I'm curious, RJ, with the Cowboys playing the Broncos this week. They haven't beaten Denver since the NBA was on NBC back in the 90s. If they go to Denver and beat Bo Nix and that group this week, how much more urgency does it put on that front office to make a move, or does it do the opposite? Hey, we're good. We don't have to make a move right now.
You can't justify things with results like that. I think you have to make that decision now. And I think they've made it, right? I think that the decision isn't, can we beat the Broncos on October 26th? It's, can we beat the Lions 7 days after Thanksgiving? Can we beat whoever it is we're fortunate to play, the second and third weeks in January if we ultimately get there? And you have to look at it that way. I think if you minimize it and dilute it to, well, if we win this game, we're good, then you really suck at this. And you're kind of everything that we say you are in the worst possible ways. But if they win this game, I do think that we're on the verge of this jumping the shark, because they'll have beaten the Commanders and they'll have beaten a Broncos team that's very good. And then they'll probably beat the Cardinals, who's another team that kind of weirdly owns them. And Kyler Murray's never lost a game in the building. And then they play the Raiders coming out of Monday Night Football. I'm going to guess that my friend Jason is going to that game. It's the first Cowboys regular season game ever in Las Vegas. And both those Cardinals and Raiders games are on Monday Night Football with the whole world to see. And so if they are coming off of 4 wins in a row after two Monday Night Football games, Overshown's back. I mean, this thing is going to fall off the rails. And the We Dem Boys people, the dudes who wear the foam Cowboys hats, like, they are going to be out and proud right around Thanksgiving time.
Well, that begs the question: do the Cowboys? And then look, we're talking about Jerry Jones. Do they do anything? I mean, if they're looking at their roster and they've got Ravel, they've got Overshown coming back, and they had a pretty good performance against Washington, I could see a scenario where Jerry says, you know what, we're good. Help is on the way, as he has said before, and we're going to roll with this squad that we've got right now.
Yeah, I mean, you can't put anything past this man. I mean, did you see the glare on Sunday? You know what I mean? Like, there are a number of ways to prove that point, but I think that the Brian Schottenheimer culture is taking a bit of root, and I think that they recognize that they have something very special in Dak, and I think that they've committed this sin already before in terms of squandering a franchise quarterback. He's going to be on the call for this week's game. I mean, so I in zero way am I offering that I think they've learned their lesson, or I think they've matured, or I think they've grown up. I'm not that naive as I might be, but I think they recognize that they're floating close to nirvana right now. And you want this party to keep going. You know what I mean? If the bartender came up to you, Joe, and said, I can push last call at 3 a.m., you do it. You know what I mean? Why would you want to go home?
Absolutely,
that's
I would.
right now.
Yes. You know me well, RJ.
Absolutely. I mean, another great analogy from RJ Ochoa. He's full of them today. All right, spaghetti on the wall. One of the trade scenarios that I saw yesterday for Max Crosby included a 1 and a George Pickens. A lot of talk about the Cowboys extending Pickens either in season or after the year, but I don't see any scenario in which the Cowboys and Jerry would help the defense by weakening the offense. Do you think Pickens is completely off the table when it comes to trade talks?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's maybe the 4th most important player on the team. And that's because quarterback is inherently number 1. I mean, you can make an argument that in some respects he's more important than CD. I mean, he's one of only 2 players in Dallas Cowboys franchise history to have over 600 yards and 6 receiving touchdowns through the first 7 games of a season. The other one was a receiver they acquired by trade in Amari Cooper. And again, I think the lesson learned was that, they got emotional, they got mad, and they kicked him out the door. And so I also think beyond that, trading Pickens would cripple this team. I mean, somehow they survived trading Micah Parsons. I mean, they did. I mean, they are barely standing in some respects, but if you took Pickens away, I think it would just be a death blow. And you would, I mean, this fan base is barely not rioting at this moment in time. If you want to see somebody really pissed off, trade George Pickens away. But I mean, if you don't plan on extending him, I would offer that it does at least merit saying out loud. That's why it was stupid to not do the extension the moment they traded for him.
Well, then let me ask you this question. As long as we're talking about hypotheticals, do you pay George Pickens more money than you paid CD Lamb?
Yeah.
Okay. And you don't think that causes any issues with your number 1 wide receiver?
It's the going rate, man. Like, that's the way this game works. I mean, and I think CD's adult enough to understand that. I think that they want to win. I think CD has been a part of the franchise that has faced the ultimate memeness of being a Cowboy. And I think CD recognizes that George really helps him achieve. Look, I don't mean to say 30 million's nice. They don't need anything more than that. But you know what is really nice is last weekend there were how many former Cowboys in attendance, and half of them walk around immortal forever because they won championships for the franchise. That has an everlasting impact, a financial one. And if you are part of the team, at some point, and look, we may all be AI robots when it happens, but at some point, the Dallas Cowboys will win the Super Bowl again. And that team, those people, the important players, the stars of that team, they are going to be gods for this franchise in a unique way, in a way that Troy and Emmett and Irvin, as great as they were, not that it will be better, but it will be different because they will be part of the group that delivered the franchise from evil. And if you're CeeDee Lamb, there is a serious value in that, and George Pickens helps that goal obviously be achieved.
Be interesting to see if that happens.
RJ Ochoa.
I don't know.
Bloggingtheboys.com. Read and watch them there. Follow them on Twitter at RJ Ochoa. Have a great weekend, my friend.
I hope you guys find a comfy chair to sit in later and maybe fall asleep with a blanket over you and feel nice and cozy.
Happy birthday, RJ.
Appreciate it.
Good stuff.
That's caught it.
RJ Ochoa on the Buyers Barricades guest line, where they provide traffic control, rental, and sales for San Antonio and beyond. Online at buyersbarricades.com.